Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Debate IR program. Your host Tariq Khan. As you know, United States of America has left Afghanistan after 2 decades of war. Know what will be the security implications for the region as well as within the Afghanistan and Afghanistan relationship with China, Pakistan, United States of America, and other regional countries. So today we'll discuss Afghanistan under Taliban regime and Afghanistan's relations with China, Pakistan, United States of America, and the implications for the region. So let us bring our guest in program, Mr. Umar Amer. You are researcher at Center for Aerospace and Security Studies. Mr. Amer, thank you so much for joining Debate IR program. You are most welcome.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Tariq.
Amir, how do you view the United States of America withdrawal from Afghanistan after 2 decades of war? How would you analyze this?
I believe the American withdrawal has implications for the region as well as globally. Afghanistan, a country of 33 million people, has been embroiled in conflict for 40 years, and this has resulted in a paucity of socio-economic development for the country, as the military was the primary stakeholder in the Afghan conflict. The military, I mean the American military in this case. It was only later realized that the state building should have been the project. Regionally, the neighboring countries will have to deal with the fallout of the American withdrawal, as Pakistan, Central Asian republics, and China might face their involved militant movements. As we know, America is a global superpower. However, the way it has gone about the Afghan invasion has cost him a reputation, which, according to former American Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, cannot be rectified through any strategic move in the near future. Democracy, which has been the desire of Western liberals around the world, however, will have a death blow to its reckoning. Neither of the states of the West have the capacity or capability to sustain this venture, particularly in the West Asian region. They are faced with much bigger challenges. Example, the Eastern Europe region, such as Crimea and Georgia, Caucasus, and other parts of Eastern Europe, which are faced with challenges of governance and as well as challenges of Russian incursions. The second challenge that the Western Bloc faces is in the Indo-Pacific, where, according to some statistics, around 28% of the world's GDP is based in. And this is a region where there are strategic issues between the Western Bloc and China, which include obviously the South China Sea, which include the Korean Peninsula, which include the Japanese, Chinese island issues, and obviously the other issues that ASEAN countries face with China. And I would also like to mention here that Hong Kong has a special place in the Western philosophy, as it was under rule by the British for 100 years. So that is another strategic flashpoint between the Western Bloc and China. Therefore, 30 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall, I believe the liberal international project for bringing democracy to West Asia and South Asia has lost its steam. And therefore, America is unlikely to use hard power in the near future to bring democracy to these regions. And the foreseeable futures, we can see that America might scrap its programs abroad, which were premised on the democratic ideals of democracy and development to these regions, premised primarily on nation building. Furthermore, I would like to add that the American withdrawal has indication of their retreat towards isolationism. This isolationism was most evident in the rise of Donald Trump to the presidency, and it is harkening back to the American philosophy of the mid 19th century, when they gave the Monroe Doctrine in 1823, to be precise, and they specified that America will remain within the American continental region, and it will focus on its own internal development and not embroil itself in the conflicts in Europe. So at this point, the conflicts are not in Europe, but in Asia, and I believe that the American retreat towards isolationism is a positive indication for the American populace. However, for the global world order, it might not have that much of positive connotations. So America is likely to shift its focus towards the great power rivalry in Asia Pacific and Western Europe. And this is how I view the withdrawal of America from Afghanistan after 2 decades of war.
Umar, as you know, the rivalry of China and the United States of America. So, how would you explain the China's role in Afghanistan as well as the future of CPEC under the Taliban regime or Taliban control of power? How would you analyze?
As I mentioned earlier, China is one of America's strategic rival, not the only strategic rival I must mention here. And China is going to play a key role in determining the future trajectory of Afghanistan, as it is a neighbor of Afghanistan. And China is likely to undertake large-scale construction projects in the country if we envision the China-Pakistan economic corridor extending towards Afghanistan. Afghanistan has, I would like to mention here, a well-developed road network that was constructed during the American time in Afghanistan. So at that point, America undertook large-scale construction projects, and India also invested in some of the road projects amounting to around $2.5 billion, and they connected the west of Afghanistan with the east of Iran. China is likely to make use of this well-developed road network, and obviously, as we all know, that there has been a lot of development in the road networks in Pakistan. If the two road networks are linked, they can increase the connectivity, trade, economic opportunities, and prosperity of the region, as it will decrease the commute times and increase linkages between the two, and obviously under the umbrella of the Chinese, the three countries. So I believe that China is likely to undertake large-scale construction projects in Afghanistan in the foreseeable future. And China has a goal of achieving leadership in various emerging technologies by 2030. And it stands as the primary strategic competitor to the United States in this domain. It has a well-resourced, a comprehensive, and a unified direction towards achieving these goals. If the Chinese undertake technology transfers to Afghanistan through a civil fusion policy and through incorporating the Afghanistan's IT network into the Chinese information technology domain, then it is another area of cooperation that I envision between the two countries. Moreover, with the help of Chinese aid, this nascent IT sector can rapidly develop. Taliban have given positive indications towards their being incorporated into the CPEC project, and they have stated that they would like to be part of this project. And China has the economic muscle to undertake these projects, which can obviously induce foreign direct investments into Afghanistan. And moreover, we can also see that Afghanistan's foreign exchange reserves have been frozen by the United States. So it is in dire need of some economic aid, which, if it is integrated into the global financial system, then I believe the only country which has the potential and the economic progress to undertake these projects and to undertake this credit facility in this regard is China.
Umar, do you think that after the withdrawal from Afghanistan, the U.S. role will be less in Afghanistan or in the region, or it will be keeping engaging with the same priorities and interest in the region? And do you think that the U.S. was successful in Afghanistan? How would you analyze?
Okay, so for this, first we need to delve a little bit into the history of how this project started. So America's war on Afghanistan was based on legitimate grievances that was based on the tragic incident of 9/11. However, the lies that were predicated by the neoconservative bloc in the United States to sustain the war was increasingly based on a pack of cards that was bound to fall. It resultantly made it increasingly hard for the Americans to pull the plug on this war project. Beyond the abuses themselves, there was the conceptual damage, which I mentioned earlier in the interview, to the liberal international project about furthering the goals of good governance, democracy, development, human rights, and other noble intentions. So rather than using law enforcement agencies to address the horrible crimes of September 11, the Bush administration declared a global war on terror that extended to every corner of the earth, far beyond the borders of Afghanistan, where any kind of transnational terrorist organizations were based. That purportedly allowed detaining suspects found anywhere as enemy combatants without charge or trial until the war ended, meaning potentially forever. This laid the groundwork for indefinite detentions at various American black holes, such as in the Guantanamo Bay, where there was a lack of due process and a right to fair trial, which are essential ingredients of a well-functioning judicial system. And I would also like to mention here that this global war on terror project was increasingly and incessantly based on uh, different legalizing mechanisms that were never a hallmark of the American democratic project, and which curtailed the rights of freedom and liberty. And I believe that the more enlightening approach to countering terrorism would have been enlisting the Muslim communities themselves in and around the globe. Most Muslims in the United States were appalled by the perversion of Islam that Al Qaeda used to justify the September 11 and other attacks. And globally, Muslims became the primary victims of terrorism. Yet, from Bush to Obama to Trump, Muslims as a whole were treated with varying degrees of suspicion, subjected to police surveillance, profiled for interrogation, targeted for entrapment, locked up as material witnesses, and this, instead of encouraging the Muslim communities to cooperate in identifying potential terrorist threats, instead alienated them because of the mistreatment that was meted out of them. The only beneficiary of this project was the military-industrial complex of the United States. It reaped hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue at the cost of innocent lives of thousands of Afghanis, Pakistanis, Somalians, Egyptians, Libyans, Arabs, non-Arabs, immigrants, and even American and NATO soldiers. So the only beneficiary of this 20-year project, I believe, has been the military-industrial complex. And the war was increasingly turned ideological as Obama entered presidency. Obama premised his presidency on the fact that Afghan war was the good war and the Iraq war was the bad war. He wanted to bring democracy and development to Afghanistan. However, 20 years later, multiple other countries have faced the wrath of American expansionism. And as we all know, these include many in the Middle East. Some have faced civil wars, others have faced regime change. And the 20th anniversary of September 11 is a moment both to remember the victims and reassess the profoundly misguided aspects of the US government response. It is time to condemn the evil of terrorism, but however, simultaneously, it is a call to close the black spots such as Guantanamo Bay. And it is time as much as still to prosecute those who ordered the secret detention and torture and to release the full Intelligence Committee reports on this despicable program. It is time to formally end the global war on terror and to admit that in the absence of genuine armed conflict, terrorism offenses can be fought like any other serious crimes within the confines of international human rights and humanitarian law without the endless detention and summary killings that have plagued this forever war. I mean, it is very self-evident from the different opinions of leading intellectuals, diplomats, academicians, retired military veterans, and other relevant personnel and officers of the United States bureaucracy and intelligentsia that the Afghan project and Afghan war was and is a failure. And that is where I believe that Henry Kissinger's quote is most evident, that there is no strategic move in the near future that can overcome this embarrassment. So this strategic miscalculation that was continued throughout the two Democratic and two Republican regimes has unfortunately or fortunately reached its conclusion, and America has been unable to achieve its priorities, at least in the strategic perspective.
Umar, how would you analyze, how would you observe and explain the United States of America and Pakistan relations in the context of new Afghanistan under Taliban power? How would you explain this?
Pakistan can act as a bridge between the two regimes. It has since 2001 called for a political settlement and a political solution to the Afghan war. However, that fell on deaf ears in Brussels and Washington. The two countries, however, can act constructively to work on setting up Afghan institutions and development projects, as well as the diplomatic core of Afghanistan as a new regime, so it can be integrated into the global system, and they can be made aware of the kind of dealings that are necessary in the global diplomatic world. Moreover, the humanitarian aid needed to overcome the impending food and medical crisis can also be overcome through the cooperation between these countries, where Pakistan can act as the transit location and America can undertake the required necessary steps to basically give the humanitarian aid. Moreover, common challenges such as COVID-19 and climate change are something which can be found as areas of cooperation between America and Pakistan, and Afghanistan can be integrated into this setup as well. America, I would like to mention here, has donated around 6.6 million Pfizer vaccines last week to Pakistan to aid in its fight against COVID. That brings to a total of 15.8 million vaccines that America has donated to Pakistan in the fight against COVID-19 through the COVAX program. And moreover, the two countries can also cooperate on operationalizing different energy projects such as Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India gas pipeline. And this has been something which can enhance regional connectivity and also ensure regional stability in the future.
Umar, Ahmed, thank you so much for your valuable and precious analysis on the Afghanistan, China, US, Pakistan relations. Thank you so much again for your time in debate.
Thank you for having me, Taisa. Looking forward to having further interactions with you as well. Thank you.